Hello and welcome to another episode of the Brand Couch here from Reykjavik in Iceland at Charge Energy Branding Conference. I'm here with Caroline from Trustpower now. And hello, Caroline.
Hello, nice to be here.
Very nice to have you on the couch. So really quickly about you and the company you work for.
Sure. So I'm Carolyn Schofield. I'm head of brand for Trustpower. So Trustpower is one of the top 5 largest energy retail brands in New Zealand. Until recently, we were a gentailer, but we've undergone a bit of a change in the business in the last year. So we've actually separated off the generation business into a separate business, and we have actually been bought by one of the other of the big 5 retail energy brands in New Zealand to form the collective customer base of the 2 brands. The other is Mercury. So the collective Mercury and Trustpower base now makes us the largest energy retailer in New Zealand.
Well, there you go. And in our sort of intro conversation, we talked about the competitiveness of the market, right? Being a small market, but very competitive.
Very competitive.
And your sort of journey from a traditional retailer to become more of a home bundled service offering, right? And there's a repositioning effort, which is quite large.
Yeah.
Take us in your own words through that story. Like how did that go about? Why did you do it? Key learnings, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So this is a journey that we've been on for about the last 8 years now. As you mentioned, the retail energy market in New Zealand is completely deregulated, highly competitive marketplace. There are, we have a population of 5 million and have over 30 energy retailers. The barriers,
it's like Norway, actually.
Very, very similar. But the barriers of entry for new retailers are very low. Deliberately, the Electricity Authority sets barriers to entry low to encourage competition. So, like any business that wants to grow and wants to remain profitable, we were looking for ways that we could differentiate ourselves from the competitors. So a number of years ago, actually about 15 years ago, before my time at the company, Trustpower first started looking at retailing telecommunications products as well as energy products. Right. So they recognized that there was an opportunity that maybe, although they are very different, and I can talk a little bit at some point about how different they are to deliver those services, that there are some synergies between telco and energy in that, they are both products that are pretty essential to life these days for everyone, and they are services that are delivered to people to consume in their homes. So because of the synergies, the company believed or had the hypothesis that we could make a business retailing both. So we first started dabbling in it about 15 years ago, but at that point, the telco services were basically white labelled from another company and were sold under a separate brand, which at the time was called Connect. So we had some success. We mainly cross-sold to some of our customers, but it was as a separate brand. But there were some fundamental issues with that business model. One of the key ones was that because we were white labeling, we didn't have complete control over the customer experience. And with telco, customer experience is incredibly important. It's customers are more engaged with their broadband service than they are with their energy service. I'm sure all of us who work in energy can talk about the fact that it's generally a very low engagement sector. Telco is much higher engagement. So those sort of early trials, because we didn't have complete control over the customer experience, either in the product that was actually being delivered or from the sort of ongoing customer service. About 9 years ago, the company decided to change the model of the way it was working. We invested in building our own ISP network, so we had complete control over the technical product we were delivering. And we decided to reposition the company from being, an energy company and still very much an energy company that could sort of, would you like fries with that? Or a little bit of telco on the side, to making this concept of bringing together the energy and the telecommunications into a bundle of home services and selling them as a bundle. Was adopted as the retail strategy. And so my job when I came on board, and my ongoing job, has been to claim that positioning, to reposition the Trustpower brand not as an energy company, but as this bundled home service provider. And so that's what I've done.
And then with that, you created a new category.
And
right?
with that, we've created a new category. We have been incredibly successful, or we were very successful, particularly in the early years. We got some of the big, the telco market in New Zealand was at that time dominated by a duopoly. And we got them quite rattled at our ability,
which is always
nice.
So, in doing sort of that kind of a journey, you said something about best practices, right? And you've sort of been spending quite some time on really looking into, because what happens a lot with branding nowadays, specifically in categories that are not necessarily that used to it, right?
Yes.
They go into the classic trap of how we've done things before. Right?
Yes.
And you've sort of chosen a different route. You've chosen to go the best practice route.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah. So first of all, in terms of when we were developing the current brand positioning, customers are at the heart of everything we do. Yeah. So we did a lot of research early on. We continue to do a lot of customer research to make sure that our brand positioning comes directly from customer needs. Yeah. Because it's all very well for a company to have ideas about what it wants to be, and I think there are still too many companies whose positioning is about what the company, whoever that is, wants it to be. Whereas everything we do is rooted in customer insight. And so the whole brand positioning comes from what are those customer needs, what are those customer wants, and how does our bundling of energy and telco services meet those needs. Yeah. So first of all, when it actually comes to developing a brand, we apply all of that customer centricity, customer focus, starting from what the customer wants, not from what we want to deliver. We've then, in terms of establishing the Trustpower brand, we very much invested in the brand. So for those of you out there who are familiar with Binnett & Fields and all the work that they've done over the last sort of 15 years, looking at what makes effective marketing, how you build brands effectively. I mean, their headline is that you have to spend more of your budget on brand level communications than activated communications in order to grow, or certainly that the most effective strategy is to invest more in your brand than in your activation, performance marketing, whatever term you want to use. Yeah. So that's what we've done. We have invested very heavily in brand level communications, which are emotional storytelling communications. So again, there's a whole canon of research out there, again, from Binnett & Fields, from WARC, from all these organizations all over the world, showing that emotional communications at the brand level are more effective than rational, than arguing rationally. And it all comes down to the way the brain works.
Yeah, of course.
So we've very much taken that approach. We've used the sort of Binnett & Fields 60-40 rule in terms of the amount that we're investing in brand versus activation. And the actual creative routes I take in what I do is completely centered around telling emotional stories to create the salience, to appeal to the system one brain rather than the rational brain, to create those emotional connections with the brand.
Awesome.
Rather than using rational messaging.
Yeah. And I think, and this is actually rounding off the conversation as well, because obviously branding is really about that, right? It is about that. It should be, but it's also, what you see is that the management teams of this world often like to sort of get their statistics from the performance marketing, from the clicks and from the this and that and engagement. But what we see is that the emotional trigger you create with a human being that actually creates a relationship you want over time is the one that creates value.
Right? Absolutely, absolutely.
Caroline, we have unfortunately only 5 to 10 minutes on this conversation. This is a long topic, and I thank you so much for being on the couch. I really appreciate your time. And if you want to know more about Trustpower, you can go to trustpower.co.nz and follow their journey. And thank you for coming, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.